takes, I don't know if you guys have ever seen a regular drum carder, tabletop drum carder. We have one over here that Rebecca has. I forgot to bring mine. But that's something you would probably purchase or buy or rent to make your own small bats. But since I'll bet it inside track on the good stuff. This is what this is. This is how big the bats are that come off the machine. They're a little wider. So and this was white, and again, I don't know what it was. It's a mix of alpaca and wool. Again, short stuff, whatever I had. I did write down what I was using and how many ounces I used. And I thought, well, let's see if we can get these guys in the dye pot. So this was the first one I did. Of course, it was. And I thought to do this, to fit this in that silver cooker behind, if you guys turn around and see that, that's a food warmer. That's what we use at work to dye. I have one of those at home too. And I wanted to see if I could get that in there and put some color on it, because that's really what I like to do. So I folded it into quarters and fit it in there. And with a couple, pulling it up and layering it and doing that, and it took about all day to get this thing, which I'm pretty excited about it. I'm going to show you guys how to spin this when we get to that part of the program. So this one was obviously not folded in half, but it was what I call two-hand cram. I got it all in there, and then you spread it down, flipped it, and you did that. So I was pretty excited about that.
How do you keep the cats off the rat?
This is in the studio, and Blue Kitty knows better. These are really good. That's nice.
Blue kitty?
Yeah, Blue Kitty. He's really good. That's his name. Blue Kitty. He's my studio cat. Okay. So that's what this machine does on one of the things it does on a big scale. Okay. I'm going to show you also too, coarse spun yarn, which is another thing that that machine does. I'm just going to show you some finished examples of coarse spun yarn because I don't know where it is now. So here's some finished examples using coarse spun. This is alpaca. I bought that from some ranchers in Iowa. They were up at the art show at the distillery in Three Oaks. That's something I made. That's coarse spun. We made at work, and I believe that's, I don't know if it's wool and alpaca. But what I'm wearing too are scraps of coarse spun. So what happens with coarse spun is that this is not here. There's another attachment that runs yarn across where the fleece is coming. The fleece wraps around that core and then gets wrapped around a cone. If you guys want to see these things in action, you're welcome to come up during the week. We have big windows you can see through. We may not be doing all these things all the time, but our mill is designed for people to be able to watch our processes at any time during the week. Yes.
Is this crochet?
That's knit with super big needles, jumbo huge needles. That's just a college. Anyway, so that's what this machine does. And coarse spun yarn is also used. Well, it's also called rug yarn. So going back to the fleece, if you send us in 5 or 6 fleeces, and maybe a lot of it, maybe 50% of it is too short to spin, we'll suggest carded roving, which you can spin yourself, or we will suggest coarse spun yarn, and that's what we make out of the really short stuff, because it will wrap around that core, but we can't spin traditional yarn. So not a lot is really getting waste. Yes.
So
Yes.
what's the difference between the carded roving and the batting?
It's just a form.
Okay.
So the carded roving comes out as a sliver, like that ball I passed around.
Yeah.
This comes out. It completely as a sheet and then wraps around the drum. If it's, depends on what attachment we've got attached to the back of that machine, but when it's carded roving, it comes off wide and it narrows into an orifice and then comes out. It's kind of hard to explain without having it, but it comes off the machine the same. It just depends on that attachment at the end, how it forms. Okay. So I'm going to show you some ways to card yarn at home. If you don't want to invest in a tabletop carder, which are like, I think new about $600, and they go up from there depending on how wide they are, if they're motorized, and other things. This is a good way to make what they call Rolex. I'm going to pass around some of this. This is raw meat that we buy pre-dyed, and you can feel it. It's a little more coarse, but it's a good blending fiber, and we use this for. Okay, here it is. Okay, so this is a Rolex. This comes off of here, and I'll show you how to do that right now. So this is handmade by me. This was a cutting board. I bought this carding cloth off of Etsy, and it comes in different gauges, I think is the word you use. This is kind of an average gauge. There's average, and then there's coarse, and then there's fine, depending on what kind of yarn or roving you're using or what your end product is or wants to be. And I'm just going to do some strokes. And this is also a good way to be consistent in your end product, which is something I never do. I struggle with consistency. But you can see if you, and I'm not even following this sequence here, but if you wanted to do this, you could do however many you have fiber-wise of this, and then have that same sequence in your yarn, because you want to do that. I don't want to do that. My approach on all of these things is pretty much, if I know what it looks like, I'm already bored. I want to enjoy the process and the mystery of creating. So, so that means I'm not going to want to spin 500 yards of something that looks like this. I'm already bored with this when it's over with. That's just how I roll. So I like the surprise. I like the approach of creating on the fly type of a thing. And I can show you some yarn if I can find it. I know it's here. I swear it's here. That I made with this particular fiber. Okay, so I'm going to push that in the. I'm going to pretend like this thing is full. The whole thing's loaded. It's not. And again, this came with my drum carder. You could use, I have a little brush that I bought at a hardware store that really works great. I think it's a nail brush actually. I don't have it in, so I forgot my equipment. So if this was full, again, you'd fill this whole thing, not super thick, because this is what happens when you do it too thick. It's, yeah, I can't even, that's not what you want. You want something that you can draft. So this is, that's good for drafting right there. And again, I'm not a precision spinner. I don't do anything by the rules. I don't follow directions. I don't do any of that. I'm just doing this. So I pull out one of these dowel rods. And I pull out the other one. And then we've got this lovely little roulette. Ta-da! Yeah. So yeah. So it's fairly easy, fairly inexpensive. I can't remember how much this was to buy, but there was a little bit of contact adhesive underneath, and I think you must have made this for me, okay? My husband, I forgot to say thank you for filming. My husband's filming too. Part of this, part of that. Okay, so this is a drum carder. This is Rebecca's. And again, it's basically a mini version, boy, that's heavy, of the thing we have at work. And nobody was complicated than this. So there's just two barrels, as you saw. The one that works that a lot more. These come motorized, they come wider. But this is kind of basically the same kind of size that I have. I think they're made by different manufacturers. Sometimes you can find them for a really good deal at like an estate sale if someone like me, passes on to another realm and they've got all this stuff. You can get a good deal on these. Otherwise, new, they're pretty pricey. Okay, so I'm going to show you hand cards and some combs. Another way to process your stuff. So, this is a traditional set of hand combs. These belong to my other boss, Susie. And these are nice and big. Usually they're not this big, but I think that this is a kind of a super deluxe size. So if you don't want to buy hand combs, you're just starting out, you're on a budget, cat brushes, dog brushes. Basically the same kind of thing, right? So except on a smaller scale, not super quality, not going to last forever, but if you don't know if you're going to even enjoy doing this, this is the way to go. This is what I bought. So, okay. Here's the candy. Here it is. This is the knitted candy. Okay, so back to the factory. I worked at the factory for 2 years. It was miserable. Before I left, I decided I'm going to knit some of this candy. So a lot of the candy will go into a big bin for as waste if it's fed to hogs, I believe. So anyway, I was bound to determine to get some of that scrap and see what would happen if I knit it up, and that's what happened. It's been in there for like, what, 5 years? I don't know. And it hasn't decomposed at all. So what does that say? Yeah. Of course, it's blue and green. So I posted that on one of my Facebook groups, and then people were like losing their mind about it. And then some people showed examples that they took, like the shoelace licorice, they had done stuff with that. So, it's like, you're not going to stop me from doing some kind of...
I thought you were talking about wrappers.
No, well, that's another thing. Yeah, no, this is actual thing. And I had to get clearance to take that home even though it was scrapped. Okay, so hand cards, basically the same kind of thing, except you're doing this. I don't do this very often. And we actually use these hand cards at work sometimes if we want to know really quickly how colors are going to look together. So an example was, we had a customer want a custom hand-knit sweater out of his alpaca, right? That orange. But we couldn't knit it out of all alpaca because it's going to stretch. It's not going to hold its shape. So we told him we had to mix it with some blending fibers. So but he wanted that color, which was like a rusty kind of auburn animal. We had to find what we had to offer that was going to match and mix with his alpaca. So we had to find what was going to make that auburn color and Romney and merino to mix with the alpaca. And this is how we found out what color we were going to work with. So this is a handy tool if you have to do something that's specific as far as color-wise. Instead of doing it on a big scale, you can do a little bit of experiment. Let's see if I can get this right. Okay, so you can see how it lines up the fibers. And of course, this stuff has already been processed. So these are good for a raw, not a raw, but a unprocessed fleece to get them. Okay, so then to do that right? So this, again, this is not a lot. It's from this. And there should be more on there. But that's just another way to get to the space, which I think is fun. Okay. So we're going to do the Viking combs next. I don't know if I'm going to set these up, but these are pretty scary looking. I've seen scarier ones. Some that are curved, super pointy. These aren't that scary. I wanted to order some of those super pointy ones, but because of COVID, there was supply problems, so that didn't happen. What I like about these, I ordered these from a guy in Turkey. These were custom made. Yeah, they were gorgeous. He's got this base that clamps to your table. Let's see if we can do this. So first of all, the combs clamp to the base. Let's do the base of the table really. So there's two places for this. Let's see if I can get this. Okay. These tables are kind of weird underneath. So this clamps to your table. So traditionally, I think combs are used one in each hand. The reason I bought this particular set is because you could clamp this to the table. These get stationary. These pins. And then you put your fiber, and these are good for